I thought my parents gave away my childhood home to pay for my sister's dream wedding, but when I found the real deed hidden in my father's desk, I discovered a truth so shocking, it changed everything I believed about my family forever. If you've ever felt like the forgotten child in your family, this story will hit close to home. Make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell because you won't believe how this ends. Trust me, you'll want to hear every single detail. Let me tell you about the day I thought my parents betrayed me in the worst possible way. My name is Jessica, and this story starts 6 months ago when my younger sister Amanda came bouncing into our family dinner with news that would turn all our lives upside down. "I'm engaged," she squealed, practically vibrating with excitement as she thrust her hand out to show off a diamond ring that probably cost more than my car. Tyler, her boyfriend of 2 years, stood behind her with this proud smile, like he'd just conquered Mount Everest instead of proposing to my dramatic little sister. Now, don't get me wrong, I was happy for Amanda. Really, I was. But if you knew my sister like I did, you'd understand why my stomach immediately dropped. Amanda doesn't do anything small. When she wanted to learn piano, my parents bought a grand piano. When she decided to try horseback riding, they got her private lessons at the most expensive stable in town. So when she got engaged, I knew we were in for something big. "We're thinking a spring wedding," Amanda continued, her eyes already glazed over with wedding dreams. "Something elegant, maybe at the Riverside Manor. You know, the one where Jennifer's cousin got married? It was absolutely magical. My mom, Linda, nearly choked on her water. Riverside Manor was the kind of place where people with trust funds got married. My dad, Robert, just sat there looking like he'd been hit by a truck. We weren't poor, but we weren't Riverside Manor rich either. Dad worked as a mechanic, and Mom was a part-time bookkeeper. They'd always provided for us, but an extravagant wedding wasn't exactly in the family budget. Over the next few weeks, I watched Amanda spiral deeper into wedding planning madness. She had Pinterest boards, spreadsheets, and vendor meetings scheduled like she was running a small corporation. Every conversation at dinner became about flower arrangements, dress fittings, and guest lists. Meanwhile, I could see the stress lines deepening on my parents' faces. One evening, about a month after the engagement, Dad pulled me aside. "Jessica, honey, can we talk?" His voice had this heavy quality that made my chest tighten. We sat on the back porch of our family home, the same house where I'd grown up, where I'd had my first heartbreak, where I'd studied for college exams until 3 in the morning. "Your sister's wedding is going to cost about $80,000, he said quietly, staring out at the garden where Mom grew her tomatoes every summer. "We don't have that kind of money." I felt sick. "Dad, that's insane. Why don't you just tell her to scale it back?" He gave me this sad smile. "You know your sister. She's got her heart set on this dream wedding. Your mother and I, we want to give her this. She deserves to have her special day." That's when it hit me. Amanda was always the one who got the special treatment. When I graduated college, we had dinner at Olive Garden. When Amanda graduated high school, they threw a party and invited half the neighborhood. It wasn't that they loved me less, but Amanda had always been their baby, their little princess who could do no wrong. 2 weeks later, my parents called a family meeting. We all gathered in the living room, and I could feel the tension in the air like electricity before a storm. Mom was twisting her wedding ring, something she only did when she was really nervous. Dad cleared his throat and looked at all of us. "We've made a decision about how to pay for the wedding," he said slowly. "We're going to sell the house." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What?" I whispered. Amanda squealed with delight. "Oh my God, really? You'd do that for me?" I stared at my parents in disbelief. "You're selling our home? The house where we grew up? The house Grandma left you?" Mom reached over and patted my hand. "Jessica, it's just a house. Family is what matters, and Amanda deserves to start her marriage off right. Just a house." I felt like they'd slapped me. This wasn't just a house to me. This was where I'd hidden under the stairs during thunderstorms. This was where I'd practiced my first dance moves in the basement. This was where I'd brought my college friends for holidays because they couldn't afford to go home. This house was my anchor. my safe place in a world that often felt chaotic and uncertain. "But where will you live?" I asked, my voice cracking. "We'll find a nice apartment," Dad said. "Something smaller, easier to maintain. We're getting older anyway." I looked around the room, at the family photos on the mantel, at the scuff marks on the hardwood floors from when Amanda and I used to race our bikes inside on rainy days. Everything that made this place home would be gone, sacrificed for one day that would be over in a few hours. The next few weeks were a blur of real estate agents, house showings, and packing boxes. I moved back in temporarily to help with the transition, but every day felt like we were erasing pieces of our family history. I'd find myself standing in my childhood bedroom, remembering late-night conversations with friends, the sound of Mom calling us for dinner, the way the morning light hit my desk where I used to draw for hours. Amanda, meanwhile, was completely absorbed in wedding planning. She'd come by the house to pick up decorations from the attic or to show Mom fabric samples, acting like the sale of our family home was just a minor inconvenience rather than the end of an era. I kept waiting for her to acknowledge what our parents were sacrificing, to maybe suggest scaling back the wedding. But it never happened. The house sold faster than anyone expected. A young couple with 2 kids fell in love with it immediately, probably drawn to the same things that had made it special to us. When my parents signed the paperwork, I watched from the kitchen, feeling like I was witnessing the death of something precious. The real estate agent shook their hands and congratulated them on the sale, and I had to excuse myself to cry in the bathroom. Moving day was one of the hardest days of my life. I spent hours in my old room, packing up memories and trying to figure out what to take and what to leave behind. My parents had downsized to a small 2-bedroom apartment across town, so there wasn't room for much. I found my old journal from high school and sat on my bare mattress, reading entries about boy crushes and college dreams, feeling like I was saying goodbye to a younger version of myself. The wedding itself was everything Amanda had dreamed of. Riverside Manor was gorgeous, with its manicured gardens and crystal chandeliers. Amanda looked like a princess in her designer dress, and Tyler was beaming as they exchanged vows. The reception was elegant and elaborate, with a 7-course meal and a live band. I watched my parents dancing together, smiling and laughing, and I tried to be happy for them. They'd given their daughter her dream wedding after all, but I couldn't shake the feeling of loss. Every time someone complimented the beautiful venue or the expensive flowers, I thought about our family home sitting empty, waiting for new owners to make new memories in rooms that had been ours for 25 years. A month after the wedding, I got a phone call that changed everything. The caller ID said Henderson and Associates, which I recognized as the law firm that had handled some of my grandmother's estate years ago. "Is this Jessica Miller?" the voice on the other end asked. "Yes, this is Jessica." "This is Mr. Henderson. I need to schedule a meeting with you regarding the property arrangement. There are some documents that require your signature." I was confused. "I'm sorry. What property arrangement?" "I think you might have the wrong person." There was a pause. "The family home on Maple Street." "Your parents didn't discuss this with you?" My heart started racing. "The house was sold a month ago to pay for my sister's wedding." Another long pause. "Miss Miller, I think there's been some miscommunication. Could you come in tomorrow morning? There are some things we need to discuss." I hung up the phone with shaking hands. What property arrangement? What documents? I called my parents immediately, but they both sounded strange when I mentioned the lawyer's call. Mom said she was sure it was just some paperwork mix-up, and Dad quickly changed the subject to ask about my job. The next morning, I sat in Mr. Henderson's office, feeling like Alice falling down the rabbit hole. He spread several documents across his desk and looked at me with concern. "I have to admit, I'm surprised your parents haven't explained this to you," he said carefully. "These are the property transfer documents for your family home." "Right, the sale documents," I said. He shook his head. "No, Miss Miller. These aren't sale documents. Your parents transferred the house into your name. You're now the legal owner of the property on Maple Street." I stared at him, certain I'd misheard. "That's impossible. They sold the house to pay for my sister's wedding." Mr. Henderson pulled out another set of papers. These are the life insurance policy documents. Your parents cashed out a policy they'd been paying into for 20 years. That money was used for the wedding expenses. The room started spinning. I don't understand. If they had insurance money, why did they tell everyone they sold the house? That's something you'll need to discuss with your parents, he said gently. But according to these documents, they transferred the property to you 6 weeks ago. The house is yours, Jessica. I drove home in a daze, the legal documents burning like fire in my passenger seat. My parents had lied to everyone, including me. But why? What possible reason could they have for pretending to sell the house when they'd actually given it to me? I found them at their apartment, sitting at their small kitchen table having lunch. When I walked in with the documents, both of their faces went white. "We need to talk," I said, my voice shaking with emotion. "Right now." Mom started crying before I even sat down. Dad just hung his head and nodded. "Why did you lie to me?" I asked. "Why did you let me think you sold our home when you actually gave it to me?" Dad looked up with tears in his eyes. "Because we knew if Amanda found out the truth, she'd pressure us to sell it anyway. She'd want her share of the money, or she'd want us to use it for something else down the line. Your father and I have been talking about this for years," Mom added, wiping her eyes with a tissue. "We always knew we wanted you to have the house someday. You're the one who truly loves it, who understands what it means to our family." I felt like I was hearing this conversation underwater. "But the wedding money?" "We cashed out my life insurance policy," Dad explained. "It wasn't easy, and it means we won't have as much to leave you girls when we're gone, but we wanted Amanda to have her dream wedding. We just couldn't bear the thought of actually selling the family home to pay for it." "So you let everyone think you'd made this huge sacrifice," I said slowly, "when really you were protecting the house by giving it to me." Mom nodded. "We knew you'd take care of it. We knew you'd preserve the memories and maybe even raise your own family there someday. Amanda loves beautiful things, but she doesn't have the same connection to that house that you do." I sat there trying to process everything. My parents hadn't betrayed me at all. They'd been protecting me, and the house, and our family legacy. They'd let me think they'd chosen Amanda over me when really they'd been planning to give me the most precious gift they could offer. "Does Amanda know?" I asked. They shook their heads. "We thought it was better this way," Dad said. "She got her dream wedding, and you get the family home." Everyone's happy. But I wasn't entirely happy, and I could see they weren't either. The weight of keeping this secret was wearing on all of us. Over the next few days, I walked through my childhood home, which was now legally mine, trying to figure out what to do with this information. The house felt different now that I knew the truth. It wasn't just the place where I'd grown up anymore. It was my responsibility, my inheritance, my future. I could see why my parents had made the choice they did, but I also understood why they'd felt the need to lie about it. A week later, I made a decision. I invited Amanda over for dinner at the house, telling her I wanted to cook for her in the old kitchen one more time before the new owners moved in. She came over with Tyler, both of them glowing with newlywed happiness. As we sat around the dinner table where we'd shared thousands of meals as a family, I looked at my sister and realized something important. She wasn't the villain in this story. She was just different from me, with different priorities and different dreams. She'd never connected with this house the way I had, and that didn't make her selfish or wrong. After dinner, I walked her through the house, pointing out little details and sharing memories. For the first time since her engagement, Amanda really seemed to see the place through my eyes. "I never realized how much this house meant to you," she said softly, as we stood in the living room where we'd opened Christmas presents every year. "It's okay," I told her. "You had your dreams, and I had mine." I decided not to tell her about the deed, at least not yet. Maybe someday, when enough time had passed and the emotions weren't so raw. For now, it felt like the right choice to honor my parents' decision and keep their secret. As for my parents, they've settled into their apartment and seem genuinely happy with their choice. They come over for dinner every Sunday, and Mom has started a small herb garden on their balcony. They gave up the big house, but they gained the peace of mind that comes from knowing they did right by both their daughters. And me? I'm still getting used to being a homeowner at 28, but I'm grateful every single day for the gift my parents gave me. I've started making small improvements, fixing things that had been broken for years and adding my own touches while preserving the character that makes this house special. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if my parents had just been honest from the beginning. Would Amanda have understood? Would it have brought our family closer together instead of driving us apart temporarily? I guess I'll never know. What I do know is that family is complicated. Love doesn't always look the way we expect it to, and sometimes the people who care about us most are the ones who make decisions we don't understand. My parents taught me that sometimes protecting the people you love means making difficult choices, even if those choices require sacrifice and secrecy. The house is mine now, but it still belongs to all of us in the ways that matter most. The memories we made here, the love that filled these rooms, the sense of home that my parents created, those things can never be bought or sold or transferred with a deed. They're ours forever, no matter what legal documents say, and maybe that's the real lesson in all of this. Home isn't just a place you own, it's a place that owns a piece of your heart. My parents understood that better than I gave them credit for, and in their own complicated way, they made sure that our family's heart would always have a place to call home. What would you have done in Jessica's situation? Would you have told your sister the truth? Let me know in the comments below. And if this story taught you that sometimes family dynamics are more complicated than they appear, smash that like button. Subscribe for more incredible true stories that will make you question everything you thought you knew about family loyalty. Until next time, remember that love sometimes comes disguised as sacrifice, and the greatest gifts are often the ones we never see coming.